Yep. Welcome back once again. You're in my creative space, the Blue Room. Yeah. Before anything, hit the subscribe button, like, and what we're going to be doing today is I'm going to be going through the audio frequency spectrum for mixing. So when you make your music and stuff, or record any sorts of sound, you will know how to approach it. Yeah. So the audio frequency spectrum, right? What I'm going to be using to explain it is I'm on this website called audiosolace.com / audio frequency spectrum explained. So it's going through the frequency spectrum, explaining a bit. I'm going to be using this to try to expand. You can then go on the website and go further in depth if you choose. Right. So basically, when you're reading it, music is a universal language. Most of us find it fascinating to study the science behind the music, audio frequency spectrum, and its ideal balance in search of the perfect sound. Right. So basically, when you're doing your mixing, you're balancing the frequency spectrum. So if you understand the frequency spectrum and how it works, you apply it to your mixing and your mastering, and then you get better sounds. Right. I'm kind of jumping forward. You can go back to this and read through it to get a more in-depth understanding, as I said. So if you look on this chart, this graph, it's showing you how sound move. Yeah, so it says from A to B equal one sound wave cycle. Basically up, down, yeah, one cycle. Right, without going further, this just me adding a bit. The frequency spectrum, it goes from zero, or the audio frequency spectrum that people can hear, it goes from zero, or we want to call 20 hertz. So the frequency spectrum is measured in hertz, Hz as the symbol that they use to represent it, but it's measured in hertz, and the audio frequency spectrum is from 20 or 0 to 20,000 hertz, right? Looking on this graph, what you're going to realize from about 20 to 40, this is your deep bass. Yeah, but basically everything from 0 or 20 all the way up to 300, that's your bass. So 20 to 40 deep bass, 40 to 80 lower bass, 80 to 160 is your mid bass, your 160 to 300 is the upper bass. So for this, you know your baseline. So in this frequency from 0 or 20 to 300, you're gonna have your baseline, you're gonna have your kick. Certain other instruments will have aspects of bass, but this is what you will be doing in mixing. You're either cutting the bass or you're cutting certain parts of it, so it is not interrupting with the other instrument that has to sit in that section. Yeah. From 300 to 600 is your lower mid-range. From 600 to 1200 is the mid-range, or the middle mid-range, right? From 1200 to 2400, that is your upper mid-range. Yeah. From 2400 to 5000 is your presence range. All of this part you're gonna have vocals is mainly going to be here, the lead vocal. Um, Certain sounds or melodies and percussion and all that kind of stuff, hi-hats, snare and all of that, it would have bits here, or the hi-hats might tilt. Certain sounds will tilt into the other quarter. If you look on the frequency spectrum, just look at it as low, mid, high. EQing, they break it down to certain other factors. When I say factors or certain other sections, you have low mids, high mids. As this graph is explaining, it can be broken down into multiple little parts, but it's basically the bass, the mid range, and the high end, or the low end, the mid range, and the high end. Right? From 5K to 10K, you basically have your high end. From 10K to 20K, you have your extremely high end. Okay? And this is the frequency spectrum. Right. Another way to see this visually is if you have, there's certain EQs, thinking off the top of my head, one of them, the REQ from Waves, it shows you like a graph so you can see where more volume is in the frequencies. You can see what frequencies are more dominant in the sound. Yeah. So if you can't really hear it like that, if you get one of those kind of EQs, I think they're called parametric EQs or something like that, where you kind of see the wave form playing while you're listening to it. Yeah. Boom. Now, without going on this, because more or less all of this stuff, it just goes further in depth into. Right, let me touch this 1 second. So 20K or 20 hertz to 60 hertz, that's your sub bass. 60 hertz to 250 hertz is your bass. 250 hertz to 500 hertz is your lower mid range. Okay. And you have another chart here you can look on and see some stuff. Your mid range is 500 hertz to 2000 hertz. Your upper mid range 2000 to 4000. Your treble 4000 to 6000. Your upper treble 6000 to 20,000. A Herman curve target response. Basically, I think this is how fast the sound, you're going to be hearing the sound or something like that. Right. Right. You have your high frequencies, your low frequencies. Then this thing, like if you go onto this side and you go through all of it in depth, you should have a clear understanding of frequency, EQing, and all of this kind of stuff. If you multiply this with other sources that you just go and use, then it should be very, very clear. But let me add this. What I've seen is this. So A to B, the curve of sound. Yeah. So in the baseline, this, if you look on sound, it is slow. The further up you go, basically all it simply means is, if I can explain it like this, let's say this is a cycle. Yeah. In the bass portion or any sound that is perceived at bass, this cycle is slow. It's more or less doing this. The further up you go, so if you're at 10, it's doing this, 10 of these. If you're at 20, it's 20. By the time you get to the thousands, the sound is moving like this. This is what it's the vibration. How many times A to B is happening. Yeah. You then realize, depending on how fast the frequency is moving, this is where you get your pitch from. So you're going to realize pitch correlates with how fast the sound is moving,
That also tells you where on the frequency spectrum the sound sits, what you want to be associated in the sound, and what you can cut from it. The more you understand this is, to me, from my understanding, is the easier all of these things become. Now, if you can be bothered with learning all of this, because a lot of times people have stuff that they're doing, isotope, and you want to get something called uh, the isotope essential suite or isotope elements. I think it's called isotope elements, where you get basically 5 plugins that is specifically geared for mixing and all that sort of stuff that you do when you have to mix and clear up sound and balance and put stuff in its own space. All of these plugins in the Elements suite have AI features that make this a bit easier for you. You know what I mean? So, again, the frequency, the audio frequency spectrum, get in tune with it if you make music, if you mix, if you master, da 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 da, and everything else should fall into place. That's why I'm gonna leave this one. You understand? Again, like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell. I will do this again soon. I'm out.